Arun had been cycling since noon, and by evening the forested stretch of Kedar Ghati had swallowed the sky. A dusty wind began to blow, carrying the smell of wet earth. When he glanced upward, he saw the clouds gathering like smoke from a giant pyre. A sense of unease settled over him. Within minutes, the world turned silent. The usual chorus of crickets and birds had vanished. Arun felt his throat tighten. "A storm," he whispered to himself, the words barely audible, just as he pushed harder on the pedals, trying to outrun the inevitable. A deafening crack of thunder split the sky. The wind roared to life, howling through the trees. A flash of lightning tore across the landscape, momentarily illuminating the twisted branches. Then the rain fell. It wasn't a drizzle. It was a deluge, so heavy it felt as if the sky itself had burst open. Blinded by the downpour, Arun was forced to abandon his cycle. He scrambled for cover, crouching under a large, leaning rock, but the rain was relentless, cutting through every gap. His clothes stuck to his skin, and a deep, numbing cold seeped into his bones, making his fingers ache. "God, please, please stop this," he pleaded, his voice trembling. As if in answer, the storm's fury softened. The thunder drifted away like the sound of retreating drums. But the road had transformed into a river of thick, flowing mud. Riding was impossible. Arun grabbed his bicycle, dragging it through the slush. He trudged on for what felt like an eternity, but after about 10 minutes, he froze. The path didn't look familiar. He had taken a wrong turn. Panic began to claw at him. Before it could fully take hold, a voice floated from the darkness behind him, looking for the road to town. Arun spun around, his heart leaping into his throat. A tall man stood near a gnarled banyan tree, holding an old oil lamp. Its flame glowed with a strange greenish hue, and it was eerily steady, not flickering at all despite the wind. "Yes." "I'm lost," Arun said, his voice cautious. "You can't reach Kedar Ghati tonight," the man replied flatly. "The road ahead collapsed in the storm, but my house is nearby. You can stay until morning." Arun hesitated, a knot of suspicion tightening in his gut. But just then, the wind began howling again, and another streak of lightning cut the sky in half. The prospect of spending the night in the open was terrifying. He reluctantly nodded. "Come," the man said. His smile didn't reach his eyes. The house appeared suddenly, materializing between two huge rocks, as if it had been waiting for them. It was small, but seemed intact, with a dim lantern hanging by the door, casting long, dancing shadows. Inside, everything was arranged too neatly, almost like a stage set, waiting for an audience to arrive. The air was heavy and still. "Sit," the man said, his voice echoing slightly in the quiet room. "I'll make you tea." Arun sat near the wall, his senses on high alert. A strange smell bothered him, something sharp, something burnt, like metal blistered by fire. "You live alone?" he asked, trying to make conversation, to break the oppressive silence. "Everyone here lives alone," the man chuckled without turning round. Arun felt a chill that had nothing to do with his wet clothes. The tea arrived surprisingly fast. Too fast. The man placed a cup in front of him. "You should drink," he insisted. "It will warm you." Arun hesitantly touched the cup. It wasn't hot. It wasn't even warm. Outside, the wind screamed again, rattling the small window frame. Yet inside, the lantern's flame stood perfectly still, motionless, like a painted picture. A thought whispered into Arun's mind, cold and clear. Nothing here is alive. "You won't be able to leave tonight," the man said, his voice pulling Arun from his thoughts. "I've prepared a bed for you." Arun forced a smile and lay down on the mat provided. The man dimmed the lamp, plunging the room into near darkness, then stepped out into the night. Arun squeezed his eyes shut, willing himself to sleep, to make the night pass quickly. Just as he was about to drift off, a whisper touched his ear, so faint he almost missed it. "Run." His eyes shot open. The room was empty. He must have imagined it. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. "Run before he returns." The voice came again, trembling, urgent. It was a woman's voice. Arun sat up, his body trembling uncontrollably, his breath fogged in the cold air. Suddenly, he sensed movement in the far corner of the room. A shadow. It was tall, swaying gently, as if hanging from something. Arun's blood ran cold. He blinked, and the shadow vanished. The door creaked open. The man was back, not sleeping. He asked, his smile as stiff and unnatural as before. "Don't worry, my wife is also here. She keeps an eye on guests." Arun's heart pounded against his ribs. "You live with your wife?" he managed to ask, his voice hoarse. "I did," the man said softly, his gaze distant. 3 years ago, Arun's mouth went dry. The man sat cross-legged on the floor, placing the strange, unblinking lantern between them. "Let me tell you a story," he said. "But it helps with restless nights." Arun didn't want to listen. He wanted to scream, to bolt from this house and run into the storm, but fear glued him to the spot. "There used to be a couple living here," the man began, his voice a low monotone. "They were madly in love. But the woman, she began meeting someone behind her husband's back. A man from the next village. One day, during a storm just like tonight, the husband returned home early, and he caught them together. For a fleeting moment, the lantern flame turned a deep blood red. Arun swallowed hard, his throat clicking. In a blind rage, the man continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. He slit her throat. Then he hung her lover from the roof beam, right in this very room. And when the guilt finally sank in, he set the house on fire. With himself inside, the wind howled louder than ever before, and the very walls of the house seemed to shudder. They say, the man added, a thin, chilling grin spreading across his face. That the 3 of them never left this valley, Arun felt like he couldn't breathe. The air was thick, suffocating. "Sleep now," the man whispered, his eyes glinting in the lantern light. We all have to leave early in the morning. Arun didn't sleep. He lay perfectly still, feigning sleep, listening to the man's steady, unnerving breathing. He waited for what felt like a lifetime until he was absolutely sure the man was asleep. Then, moving with excruciating slowness, he grabbed his bag, tiptoed to the door, and slipped outside. He lifted his bicycle and started scrambling down the rocky path, away from that terrible house. A few minutes later, adrenaline still pumping through his veins, he stopped. He patted his pockets. His wallet was missing. Cursing his bad luck, his stupidity, he knew he had to go back. He couldn't leave without it. He turned and made his way back toward the house. But when he reached the spot where the house had stood, his heart nearly stopped. The house was gone. In its place stood a blackened, skeletal ruin, charred beams jutting out like broken bones against the pale morning sky. Before he could comprehend the impossible sight, a whisper brushed against the back of his neck. Looking for this. Arun spun around. A woman stood there. Her hair was matted, her clothes were torn, and her throat bore a deep open wound from which a thin line of blood trickled down her chest. In her hand she held his wallet. Her voice was soft but hollow and echoing, as if coming from a great distance. We never forget our guests. Arun screamed, and the world went black.